Welcome, everyone. Is my sound okay? Okay. So I hope you are all well. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Janka Livoncova. And I live right now in Tennessee. And as you can tell by my accent, I'm from Eastern Europe. I'm from what used to be Czechoslovakia. Where do the roots of joy lie in myself? Where can enduring joy be found? So it is said, when we discover the roots of joy inwardly, we no longer demand from other people, events, the world to satisfy us, to relieve us of distress. That's the fruit of Mudita practice. So what is said, when we find the roots of joy inwardly, we no longer demand or even go for or ask other people, world, or events to satisfy us or to relieve us of stress. And as someone who grew up in, well, it was Czechoslovakia then, and it was during communism. I was 14 when it changed. When I discovered this practice, it was 2007 when I discovered Mudita practice and the other Brahman Viharas as well. And I heard about the benefits and the fruits of the practice. I knew that this is the practice that I have to take on, because this sense of insufficiency this isn't mind, the sense of smallness, the sense of lack that I have been conditioned by, well, it was just being Slovak. It's a very small country now because it's split. Communism, my family of origin. Do you know what I mean when I say is in mind? Is the mind that always looks for what's wrong, what isn't, right? And it comes from this deep, deep sense of lack, sense of insufficiency. And mudita is the practice that for me healed that. And the way I see it now, it's not that it never arises. And just recently, I was talking to someone and I said something that came from this sense of lack. And there is nothing wrong with that. But as soon as I said it, the way it landed in my body, I sometimes use mind and heart, but I'm really talking about chitta, right? So maybe I'll use that term instead. So the way it landed in my body, chitta, it was so painful. It was already said, right? So it was already done, but once becomes like with metta practice, right? The more you practice it, it allows you to see all the ways you are unkind, right? So same with the practice of mudita, you begin to see the roots of lack, roots of insufficiency. So, and there is just so much suffering for me when I allow my mind to abide in it. My world just shrinks and everything is perceived with this sense of what's wrong, right? And so our contemplation today is gonna be what happens to the perceptual process when the mind is filled with mudita. How do we perceive ourselves, others, and the world? Is it helpful? And another benefit that I have seen so far with this practice, one way I try to make sense of the world before I discovered this practice was that I measured myself against others, right? You know the term, it's called conceit, right? So you measure, am I equal, better, worse? And it leads to judgment, it leads to criticism, which is actually what's considered a far enemy, and I'll speak about that, of mudita. And so what began for me personally happened, that my mind and heart and my attention, right, instead of being preoccupied with others, started abiding right here in touch with my own goodness. There is, of course, a lot I need to be still working on, of course, but there is this sense of, honestly, to simplify it, it's good enough. And that's where the mind heart abides, chitta abides. Instead of looking for proof, what's wrong with me? That was one of my stories, right? Because that sense of insufficiency and lack can manifest different ways. It can manifest like what's wrong with the world or what's wrong with you, you know, or both. So I'll call it the ideology because that is what I've received as conditioning of lack and insufficiency. For me, it led to many, many moments of restlessness, even anxiety, or this subtle way of experiencing, what's the opposite of contentment? Like disease, right? That sense of discontent. And from that sense of discontent, the mind looked outside to appease it. as opposed to allowing myself to abide. Oh, yes, it's good enough, and yet there is still work to be done. So another way the lack of mudita obstruct our connection to the abundance, to the joy, gladness, is when we are experiencing something, the mind that lacks mudita goes, well, what's the point? It's gonna end anyway, right? So the image that Buddha offers, or simile, for this practice is a flower in full bloom, and our ability to take a joy in it while we know that it's not gonna last, right? Also, when this mind and heart, this citta, lacks mudita, it feels like the joy or the ability to even receive and see what a great fortune I have, right? I touch on some ways we can start connecting with it, just having this practice and having responses to all these forms of dukkha the Dharma practice offers. What a good fortune. And I sometimes take it for granted. I talk to my mom, who is not a practitioner, and I can hear the suffering, right? I can hear it. Yet she doesn't know that there is response that's skillful. So she looks for ways, and I'm talking about her, but that can be me anytime. She looks for a way how to get rid of it. Or it's based on reactivity, not knowing, oh, when there is this sense of lack, insufficiency, when I notice that I'm judging someone or criticizing someone, oh, that's lack of mudita. I can choose in the moment to cultivate that, to turn my mind towards it, right? So back to what I was saying. So this constrictive, closed state, the mind heart that lacks mudita, we cannot be even touched by our good fortune. We cannot receive it. And there are many beliefs, and perhaps you can take a moment to contemplate with me, what are yours? What's in your way to receive, to open up to your good fortune? What is the belief that says you are not fit? Mine was, I'm not worthy. And I'll give you an example how it can play out for me. So in the morning, after practice, I read news, and I get like this newsletter that just sums it up, right? They are just bullet points, and then I can click on it, and it gives me the whole story if I want. And so I am looking at this, and I can feel the dukkha, and I can feel the aversiveness. And sometimes I feel guilty. And I would notice that was not helpful. It just increased my reactivity, and the capacity to respond skillfully to what was going on was very minimal. So in that moment, the belief was, well, I am not worthy of my good fortune. Like, how can I enjoy all that I have when all these people are suffering so deeply? And Mudita helped me with this, where while I am reading the news and I feel the pain, at the same time, may my good fortune continue and increase. I can appreciate my good fortune, and it leads to humility. It leads to my heart being more open. It leads to my heart being more receptive. Because when that guilt arose, or even shame, everything shut down. everything just shut down. And my capacity to be with suffering in a skillful way, in any manageable way, as I said, was really, really minimal. So that, of course, doesn't happen every time I read the news, but it's so much better that I can allow this sense of good fortune to be there, because from that place, I feel abundance. I feel like I can actually share and give. I can be available. I can be receptive. When it all just shut down before, if there was a response, it was anger, it was judgment, it was like, okay, who is it to blame? Is there someone I can blame for this? That's what my mind would do, and other things. But I'm just pausing here because I can feel my heart is just like, ooh, overflowing with mudita. So, so grateful for this practice. That, yeah. So I would like to share with you a list. And traditionally what is said, that mudita is response to envy, jealousy, and resentment. But there are also other more subtle aversive states that arise in the heart and the mind, that mudita is a skillful, helpful response to. So I read them slowly so you can identify perhaps some of them that arise in you. And when they do, perhaps there is no response. So, as I mentioned, it's envy, jealousy, and resentment, right? Then there is comparing mind and prejudice, or that shows up as judging mind, demeaning mind. And then there is avarice, rejoicing at misfortune of others. That is perhaps not to that degree, but perhaps it's our inability to allow the good fortune of others in. Or sometimes for me, it shows up that when I'm talking about someone, it's easier to say something like maybe critical than something really wholesome about the person, right? So that's how it may show up. So then there is a critical mind where from this perspective, criticism that comes from the sense of not having. So it comes from jealousy, in other words. And then there is a sense of separation, because there is this inability to allow ourselves to receive and experience our good fortune. And then there is also this sense of cold-heartedness, which of course would be about the all four Brahma Viharas, right? The heart is cold without mudita. It's cold and closed. So one way of cultivating this in daily practice, in daily life, well, one is formal practice, but in daily life, it would be perhaps in the evening, one can take a time to reflect on the day and perhaps think of 3 or 5 ways that you practice skillful speech, skillful action, or where you notice that you were intentionally training in 5 precepts. And just taking joy in that. When you wanted to say something critical and you refrain yourself, or even when you said it, but you noticed it and then you owned it, and perhaps did the repairing if that was necessary and possible. So that's what I tend to do. There are more known ways of doing it, where you reflect on really good fortune that you have, like all the material things, all the safety and security, good health, all of that. For me, what seems to be most effective is just reflecting on skillful action, skillful speech throughout the day. And slowing down is another way how one can cultivate it. Slowing down so one can receive and appreciate things. Whether it is seeing something beautiful, flower, a tree, sky, eating something delicious, slowing down so one can receive and appreciate. You go for a walk. Oh, the body knows how to move. Body knows how to breathe. Just appreciating the body, moving, breathing. With the practice of mudita, that becomes more accessible. We are in touch with that instead of, we say we take things for granted, but we also just skim things, right? We don't pause, we don't receive. We don't take in. So like now, taking in your faces. Taking in the words. So they are not only processed through thinking, but they are received in the body, chitta, received. So I'm aware of time and I would like to honor our time. So I'll finish soon and then there will be time for announcements. And I will stay for those 20 minutes where we can share more and we can discuss things that you have in your mind. I know that I didn't mention everything that I wanted. There is just so much to say about this practice, but hopefully I offered enough that something touched you, that you recognize and perhaps remember the practice when you notice the need for it. So Michael, who is helping with this call, is gonna put in a chat box all the upcoming events. And they are also on the website. They will be also posted on a Facebook page, so you don't have to retain them all. And also, if you feel moved to offer dana, that can be offered on Sacred Mountain Sangha website. We appreciate all the dana that we receive. Thank you. It sustains the Sacred Mountain Sangha. It also sustains us teachers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much also for your presence. I will check in the, okay. So Michael also put there the YouTube channel where all these recordings are available for viewing pleasure. So thank you again for your attention. I would like to leave you with a poem. I thought I won't have a time to read it. But if there are no other questions, I would like to then end with this poem. It connects to the topic. Okay. So it's called A Quiet Connection. Any morning is a chance to walk the same path I have walked before and listen. Listen to the silence between. Listen to the silence between steps, between breaths, inside joy, inside loss. The silence that sometimes fills in the cathedral of thoughts. The silence that holds all that is. Sometimes the silence clings to the moment, sticks to me, like a lingering scent of rabbit brush on the fingers, like a favorite song that won't leave the ear. The same path is never the same, and listening to silence is always new. Sometimes my own silence helps me hear the silence of my loves who are gone. I could not have known it before, how intimate it can be, the communion of our silence. How in these quietest of moments, filled with nothing but listening, open, we meet. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for being in the world with the practice in mind. It's so good to know that you are out there. Take care of yourself and your practice. And have a wonderful week.